multiple missions going on with the current government, whether it is 100 smart city mission or the Atal mission or the housing for all mission. So there are multiple schemes which are going on for urbanization. And you will see basically by 2019, Dholera seen as the first smart city in India in Gujarat by 2019. So over the period of time, what has changed? What exactly is smart city? Why is the need there? So urbanization has all been about providing the essential citizen services, whereby the optimal use of the resources, the renewable resources especially, can be done, and how the transparency can be provided to the citizens with that efficiency. But before we delve deep, I know I have to tie it down to the security and data sciences. I know, but there is a big question which is quite kind of unanswered, or probably answered in different languages, in different places. So I'll quickly ask my panelists to introduce themselves and tell what do they think that what is a smart city first. So I'll hand over the mic to Lux first.
Thank you. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure being here to share some thoughts about what we believe smart cities should be and what the role of security in smart cities. To introduce myself, my name is Lakshmi Narayan Rao, although the industry has given me the moniker Lux Rao. And I head smart cities for HPE in India, besides being the chief technologist for our enterprise group. As part of my job in the last year and a half or so, since I've been actually leading smart cities, there's been a tremendous amount of opportunity for me to actually engage with multiple stakeholders, both in India and abroad. And these interactions have provided actually, some key insights into what should really comprise of a smart city. So the whole idea of the notion of a smart city actually stems from the fact that the baseline is a safe city. It's important for any smart city to be safe first, healthy next, and then after that you actually can talk about a whole lot of things. Sometimes actually in the over-exuberance of vendors, they might actually get excited to actually peddle you a smart parking solution, okay, which could actually be appealing to the Uber class of the smart city. That isn't really smart city from an Indian context point of view. We are looking at actually Indian solutions for Indian problems, and that I think is actually an important thing. Just to actually delve straight into security aspect. I think for those of you who've been actually following news lately, you heard about actually identity theft and a whole lot of things that is happening recently of late. Recently, Ghana.com got actually hacked, and there were about 20 million IDs that got compromised. There was actually a hacking incident at Indian Institute of Ahmedabad, which also actually resulted in a similar number of identities that were stolen. Now, if it is actually, if it's really a bad thing to happen, identity theft that is, if it can be bad for enterprises, it is catastrophic for countries. That could very well actually become the Trojan horse inside the country to actually destabilize the nation. And here I'm actually talking about elements that could have nefarious designs to get into the country and actually really cause harm. And where and how could that actually happen? Not just identity theft. Think about IoT. Internet of Things today is actually the term du jour. Everybody's talking about it. Now, these things which are connected to the internet actually, could really potentially be vulnerabilities that could expose the entire country's smart grid, for instance. Think about it this way. It is possible today for people, even rogue states, to actually destabilize a nation by getting into one of these aspects that I talked about, which could be actually identity theft, citizens' identity theft, or actually smart grids, and they all could be destabilized. So here I would like to actually stop and give an opportunity for the other panelists to share their thoughts. We can talk and delve a little more into it. The importance of security cannot be undermined. There's no smart city if there's no safety, and I would think that it is actually fundamental baseline to think about security as actually integral to any smart city. Over to you.
Thank you, Lex. Good afternoon, everybody. Myself, Rajiv Mathur. I am the sales director for Darktrace. So yeah, just to add, I think the definition remains same. The smart city, what we are talking and what we are thinking about. But I would like to add a few more things here is like, we are bringing more of automation, more of connectivity. And if you look in surrounding kind of an environment where we are living in, I think everybody wants to walk in a safer way, or want to utilize those infrastructural services in a much, much safer point of view. So how to kind of safeguard yourself? I think it's not the question of, like what we do and what we have to do, but we don't have any choice. We have to ensure that, those infrastructural services or whatever amenities or whatever kind of automation we are building in terms of or in the name of smart cities, they have to be secured enough. And that's where I think the effort from kind of companies like we, who kind of providing the underlying technology to help the industrial infrastructure teams or the kind of IT or OT kind of a collaboration which goes together and helps them to kind of bring more kind of awareness and kind of bring those kind of security measures in terms of making sure that be it electrical grid, power grid, or transportation systems, or any kind of services which is being offered to the public are being well taken care of and in well secured manner. So that's what is like, we can talk a lot on those aspects, but again, the bottom line is this has to come without any choice, like, because this belongs to everybody and everybody has to utilize those systems. So there is no ifs and buts, but technology has to be rely and kind of provide whatever the important aspects of security are there. So they have to be kind of built in and become an integrated system of any of the kind of services what we are providing. So that's probably from my side, and I'll pass it on to Mukund.
Thanks, Rajiv. Hi, my name is Mukund Kannan. I am from Tech Mahindra. I'm heading the Smart City. Tech Mahindra has been in the Smart City field for quite a while. In fact, actually, our journey started from our engagement in Milton Keynes in the UK. So it's been quite a bit of a journey for us. From my perspective, I think Smart City, the security aspect is probably the most important, given the use cases are actually very, they define themselves in most of the cases. But the danger is that the use cases sound simple, and you end up actually putting the services with a motley crew of OEMs, and you come up with something. It actually moves your smart city into a naive city, because you end up pretty much ignoring the security aspects of that. And we see quite a few small incidents at this point in time, because we have been seeing some of the point solutions delivered. And we have to ensure that when we are going to have a large integrated smart city, it doesn't actually get into a mega scale catastrophe that could actually pretty much derail everything that we were aspiring to do. One of the interesting bit is that Mohenjo-daro we spoke about, it is actually the one that defined standards when it came to the municipal corporations and all that. In fact, one of the favorite quotes is that Mohenjo-daro and Harappa destroyed because they were so standardized that they couldn't adapt to changes. But now we have smart cities, no standards. Actually, we are in like completely different aspects.
Sure, thank you. So I think there was already a point spoken about the cyber security and the importance behind it. But let me kind of phrase it again. And how many of you have seen the movie Die Hard 4? Okay. So how many of you remember the fire sale attack? So the fire sale attack, for the benefit of others, it was a 3-stage attack, whereby the city was kind of put down in terms of first, it was 3 different systems. One, your banking systems, your telecommunications and public utility systems, and your transportation, whether it is rail, road, or airplane. This was all systematically brought down. First your commute systems, then your banking systems, and then your telecommunication and the power utility systems. And let the fiction aside, there are examples we see had seen the light of the day today, whether it qualifies in terms of Ukraine power grid getting down, or the sewage water Maruchi case where the hotel was all flooded with the sewage waste by one of the hackers, or the traffic lights put down by one or the other. My question, especially to Lux, you and is how do you see? I mean, whether these attacks, I mean, we are talking about in bits and pieces. We have seen some fiction getting around, but what is your take? Whether these attacks are real attacks? Can they see the light of day when we are talking about all these smart city missions and all?
Good question, and I think all of these attacks that you actually described now, and I'd like to add one more to it. There's this little story. You will get it on the net if you can just check this out. There was this nuclear reactor that Iran was actually producing. You may probably be aware of it, and there was some way in which you had to actually neuter them. Okay, so there was this very, very top secret espionage activity that was conducted by jointly by US and Israeli sleuths. What they did was essentially look at the rise of the machines. essentially these reactors are cooled by, fans, right? And they actually, work on temperature controls and so on. So when the temperature rises, they actually switch on the fans and cool down. Simple. It happens day in and day out, every day in our offices and many places. So you couldn't actually, physically get into one of these reactors. It is impossible because the security is actually, really, really of the top order. So what these guys did was, to actually, alter the pumps. Essentially, they tampered around the sensors in such a way they were not reading the right temperature. And they did all of that actually, being, hundreds of thousands of kilometers away from the site. All that actually happened in this whole, scheme of things was that the fans actually did not come on, and it actually kind of, melted down. So without really moving anything, without sending in the infantry, without actually doing anything at all they did was actually, to neuter the hostile intent of a country by doing this activity. Whether it is for a good cause or not for a good cause is not a question that I will discuss over here. It's really outside the scope of this forum. All that I want to actually say here is that these isolated incidents, which actually Abhishek talked about, these things actually indicate something. Sometimes actually fact follows fiction. So if it is a coordinated attack, if there is actually an attack, today it is possible thanks to the controls. You want a lot of convenience coming in. You actually want a tremendous amount of control that is there on the internet and stuff like that. So, but then all of these controls are actually vulnerable if they're not protected very, very well. It's very, very easy to bring down the banking system of the country, or actually the smart grids in a country which provide resources or things like that. If that's happening, just imagine actually the country's security is at risk. And that's exactly what we are talking about, from the point of view of a smart city. A city cannot be smart. You can invest thousands, hundreds of millions of dollars into actually, providing amenities and a quality of life, but you have not actually secured it. It's as good, and I'll give you a very crude example, it's as good as actually, having the best of gadgets and amenities and leaving your front door open, or the back door open, as the case may be. So that, I think, is actually an open invitation for anyone to attack. Our Honorable Prime Minister has actually time and time again spoken about the importance of cybersecurity. Many, many occasions, and I've had the pleasure of listening to him in one of the NASSCOM events actually. And he actually, goaded Indians to actually, the Indian technologists to actually look at solutions, focus on cybersecurity, and actually come up with solutions that is integral. Because the next decade, cybersecurity is actually an important area because your assets are all now virtual. And if that is the case, it's important for us to actually find ways and means of protecting them from people who have malified interests.
Yeah, certainly. I think there are quite a few examples. I think if you look at our smart cities, as I said, I think I tend to look at smart cities into two, the overall logical architecture gets divided into three aspects. Just put up with me a bit technical, but nevertheless. The simple fact is that on top you have the IT systems. Middle you typically put an IoT platform. On the bottom is basically your sensors and the gateways and whatnot. Yeah, we all understand the top IT part. Most of the guys in Bangalore at least tend to think that they understand the top IT part and the security aspects related to it. But the real challenge comes from the bottom part. That's what we typically say because none of us understand it. But for every breach at the sensor or the gateway levels or and such, or the SCADA networks and such, there are like hundreds and thousands of breaches that happen at the IT layer as well. Some of the most famous examples, I think some of them are related by Lakshya as well. But one of them, which is most surprising, was LinkedIn. LinkedIn got hacked, and a lot of passwords came out, and it was revealing that passwords were pretty dumb by very, very prominent people. Zuckerberg's password were da for LinkedIn. I'm sure I think it's something similar to that in other areas as well. But I think this is like pretty much leaving the back door open for anybody to walk in and do things with passwords like that. So that takes care of itself on the IT side. But where it gets really challenging is the sensor and the gateway portion, which is like, you just want to provide a functionality with whatever you can do for a simple use case. So we just go select the next door guy who is available, who can possibly do it, and he comes with his own sensors and wireless technology, and then goes ahead and does it. it's very, very easy to hack into those kind of a thing. And we have seen a few which are basically harmless in the current context, but some of them have been major. Some of them happen to, they were not intentional, but nevertheless just happened because somebody else misused this thing. And for example, 2003 incident wherein the whole of Northeast kind of lost power was one such thing. It was a defect, but unfortunately that was a design flaw rather than this thing, and it was an unintentional usage that made that happen. Similarly, 2,500 people called into jury duty on the same day. That has happened in California. Simple, user mistake, but again caused by how it was designed. Quite a few incidents which basically enable, point to the fact that in these cases we tend to, ignore the fact of, the enablers, enabling IT systems, and concentrate on the big ticket items and actually miss out the basics and leave it all open to hackers and others.
I think you brought an interesting point in terms of sensors, actuators, pushing in a lot of data, and you spoke about certain aspects of architecture. My question, Rajiv, to you is that how do you see this gazillions of data being thrown by these different sensors, and we have been all speaking around like the role of data science. So if you need to marry these two ideas, role of data science and security, what are the different aspects and areas do you see that can be utilized in secure and making these our smart cities more safe and secure?
Sure. Yeah, so I think you rightly said, and if you look at the mindset, typical mindset, what we always look is, when you talk about the cyber security, we always relate it to IT. And that's the kind of everybody thinks about. But as Mukund mentioned, that there are various layers. You have an IT, you have an IoT, and then you have an ICS. That's where basically your devices and your other kind of industrial infrastructure works basically. So that's where I think it's always becoming difficult or rather impossible for a human to kind of protect and kind of create the security environment. Physical security is one thing, but as Laksh mentioned the example that being so heavy and highly physical secured, it took few seconds for them to kind of get access to the controls and kind of made the changes and kind of brought everything down. So that is where I think the role of machine learning or kind of solutions which actually work on basis of use data sciences and all, they kind of plays a major role to kind of help our kind of systems to make them much secure and at least bring the visibility that what kind of a threat attack modes we can expect, what kind of a threat modeling we can do, where we can kind of anticipate the kind of attacks which can be targeted to these kind of systems. And that's where I think we are kind of trying to bring in the solutions which are purely based on the mathematical modeling and machine learning, where there is no need of human until the certain stage. And that helps them to kind of, assess the risk kind of a thing, how much risk we are carrying, what kind of a risk mitigations we need to kind of take care of, and how we need to kind of plan the investments in such a way that we are kind of building a safe and secure system in place.
Great. So Mukund, again to you, since coming back to you, in terms of if I need to make a more resilient architecture for a smart city, and we just spoke about, Rajiv gave a certain perspective. What are the critical points one should keep in mind, or probably one should even ponder upon, considering basically the amount of infrastructure behind?
Yeah, I think I'll basically touch upon less on the the IT infrastructure, which basically have been around. The threats are actually identified. We have gone through quite a lot of breakages, not because it's easy to do, it's because it's, not because they were more secure as compared to the sensors and that ecosystem, the industrial ecosystem below. But it is mainly because of the easy accessibility and the bragging rights the hacker gets, or the damage that they could cause. It's basically, somebody said it's called something like indefinite minutes of infamy, yeah, in the lines of 5 minutes of fame. So that is basically been happening on the side. I think there are protections that have been built, and pretty much we know what where we are moving towards. But on the bottom layer, I think we really have to get our governance in place properly. If I were to basically enlist those reasons why it's becoming a real threat is that one is the most important aspect would be that the size, sheer size and the sheer, hardware muscle power that goes in there, and it's pretty open, and the nerve centers are all across and pretty much easily accessible in a place. And quite a lot of OEM vendors come in with like little or no real background check, or the security aspects of them have been audited or anything. They just come in and put systems in place which add heavy data to this thing, and at the same time bring in quite a lot of security risks to this thing. So if you look at it, I think we need to really tighten up the front door of your governance layer. So that would certainly enable us to kind of control to that extent what we can possibly do. Testing has always been a challenge in a smart city or an IoT environment. IoT is also okay. But in a typical IT system, we know the boundaries. We have actually taken care of all the boundary systems and all that. But in a smart city environment, the boundary is actually almost limitless. So as and when you keep adding, typically any IT testing scenario will have, it's a very well understood principle that what you do in a simulated or in a protected environment, a controlled environment, is not the same as in what you're going to end up seeing in life. That is more true in a smart city environment, because the so-called live environment is possibly the biggest live environment anybody could ever think of. The permutation combination of live data that you would do, or live scenarios that you would never be able to replicate in a scenario. Not at the current data points and the technologies we have. If we have something that we could possibly do, then there are quite a few governance structures that we need to put in place to ensure that we bring this integrated smart city solutions under control.
Sure, thank you. So Lux, almost a similar question, but a little twist to it. So you gave the example of Stuxnet, right? Let me add one more example, not really of a smart city, but something very similar, where the country was on the epitome of digitization. It is nothing but Estonia. And they were all brought to knees, and at that point in time, they were part of the NATO alliance. And just for the benefit of the group, the NATO alliance, there is a rule that if somebody attacks you, the entire group attacks that particular nation, provided the attribution is there. But some of our cyber attacks, the technology is not so great that you can directly attribute, right? So what is your perspective? Because now this will have ramifications in terms of national security as well. So again, as Mukund was shedding light in terms of securing these smart city, what is your take with this new perspective?
Absolutely. Yeah. You brought about a very nice example. I think actually, it's in the race to get digital or be actually anointed as the digital country, sometimes it may be just actually a myopic step. Because if you're not really securing your assets, it's akin to actually what I said earlier on. You may actually have the best of everything in your house, but then you are leaving the front door open. So the complexities are actually even more intense now. You have things like, every time actually, you go through any of these incidents, you learn a lot of new things. There's this new thing called the stateless actor. Have you heard about this? Typically, when there is an attack that happens in a country and which is cyber in nature, it's attributed to what is called as a stateless actor. Whatever treaty you are in, like Estonia learned, whatever treaty you are in, unless there is actually rock solid attribution or proof of, whatever they call it, proof of, proof of perpetration, there won't be any support coming in, And it is, you don't have the conventional, possibly, God forbid if it actually happens, the next war would actually be fought on the cyber turf and not really on the ground turf. And I think it's so much important, therefore, for countries to actually secure their systems. What we are actually doing at HP is, applying data science in a very big way, because, here is again actually something that you can reckon. I think there's a whole lot of, hype that is created about, securing cities by putting cameras in. Think about it. You have cameras everywhere that's actually tracking movement, then what? Okay, the cameras are actually tracking your movement, so people actually are probably prevented from, they wouldn't want to, perpetrate an act or whatever. However, the continuous feed that is actually coming in, this is being currently not really automated in a way, in the sense there are people who are actually looking at it. I mean, if you pay a visit to one of the conventional police control rooms, you will see there is a huge digital wall there, a video wall with maybe a 9 by 9 matrix of TVs, and they actually keep looking from left to right. And after about 1 hour, fatigue sets in, and there's really nothing that catches their attention. So what actually have we done with that? Really nothing at all. So one example of where data science actually kicks in this kind of a scenario is to actually have machine learning, as you know, as he was actually mentioning. So you will have behavior that gets automatically tracked, highlighted, and things like that. So you may have 1,000 hours of video, but then there's actually one small incident that actually happens that you are able to capture it systemically. So essentially, all of these things have to be actually included, and the importance of data science can actually not be overquoted. Today, it's possible for the amount of information that is actually coming in. We live in a world of data, and all of this data is actually causing a data deluge, which means sensors are actually communicating, bringing in semi-structured data. Then you have conventional data, which is really the data that we actually work in offices with. And then you have unstructured data, absolutely copious amount of data, voluminous data that can actually swamp everyone. It is actually worse than looking for a needle in a haystack. If that's really the kind of complexity that is there in seeking and looking for information, how are you going to actually find something and prevent something from happening, let alone actually identify whatever? So here is where data science comes in. Actually, in some ways, this also is a kind of a blended solution to address the IT, OT challenges that are there. You have sensors, you got the aggregation layer, and you actually, if talking from an architecture point of view, just bear with me, I don't want to get too complex over here because it's a mixed audience. You have something called the awareness layer. The awareness layer is actually hundreds of thousands of sensors. There will be what's the word? Gazillion. There will be actually, trillions of sensors out there. Then you'll have the next layer, which is aggregating all of this information and trying to make some meaning out of it. And then the most important layer, which is the analytics layer. Analytics brings in essence and meaning to the whole data. The world's most important raw material today is data, but is of no use till it's converted into information and, more importantly, insights. If that's the case, analytics, machine learning, algorithms, all of those things actually come in very, very handy. And the 4-layered structure for engaging and creating a very robust, resilient framework for a city is basically this. It can apply for an enterprise, but actually it is, as Mukund was mentioning, it gets even more complex. Maybe 1,000 times more complex than an enterprise. Enterprise is finite. City, actually, or a state is infinite. There could be, any amount of vulnerabilities in actually this kind of a thing. The 4-layer, the 4-layer framework that we actually we propose is, the first layer is about, something called predictive analytics. Machine learning is what actually, tells you what could happen possibly. Here is actually, some kind of a crazy, weird moment, something that's actually happening that could be a potential guy with a bomb who is actually walking around. The behavior is actually, matched with thousands of databases across, and you actually come up with, a predictive analytics over here. The second part of it is incident management. Supposing an incident happens, it requires a tremendous amount of coordination and orchestration. They all should work like a song. It's all great in Hollywood movies to see the level of action that is there, but God forbid, if a catastrophe actually happens, everything will actually go haywire because you really don't know. That's the reason why countries are now actually coming up with emergency response management procedures. What should they be doing in case there's an attack, and mostly a cyber attack? So this is the second part that is there. The third part is response optimization. So you've actually, got to, optimize the response. Whatever you are actually doing, you got to make it in such a way that it is the most optimal response. Whether it's actually thwarting an attack, or it is cutting off systems, or whatever you have to do, there should be some methodology to the whole thing. Again, actually, data science comes into picture in a big way. That's actually the third element that comes in. And the fourth element is called a systemic collaboration. When you have reached a level of nirvana where all of these moving parts actually, combine to not only actually, predict, but also prevent any incident from happening. It could be a very, very isolated incident, or it could actually be a coordinated, orchestrated attack, actually destabilizing the nation. All of this actually has to come in. Again, for the benefit of all of you, I repeat it again. The first part of it is predictive analytics. Second is actually about response, is about incident management. Third is response optimization. And the last one is systemic collaboration. This kind of a framework will actually help, whether it's an enterprise or a city, to actually, prepare itself better for any kind of an eventuality? That was a long one, sorry.
No, I think you covered it fine. Rajiv, let me ask you in a different manner. I think your company does a lot of work in visibility. Your company
Yeah, that's
does
right.
a lot of this putting together. But let me ask you in a different way. So there is a need. There is basically, as Lux pointed out, in a very systematic manner, the 4-step approach. Can we really do a penetration testing of a city?
I think, I don't know if I can answer that, but to look at from the very high level perspective, we can definitely create a simulated efforts to kind of figure it out. As I said in my earlier talk, we can definitely create the threat models. We can create the attack modes, what kind of attacks we anticipate. And as machine learning definitely helps you in capturing those fraction of seconds, the movements which generally have been kind of missed by the human beings and all. So that helps you in kind of modeling and understanding the behavioral analytics and kind of the behavioral part of your what kind of a movements things are making or the kind of industrial systems are making in terms of getting being attacked or being hacked or what kind of things are happening. So that way I think yes, definitely you can kind of bring in a lot of intelligence into the place to help in identifying or at least understanding that what kind of things I can anticipate in going in future.
Okay. I have been shown basically the alarm for time, but still I have 2 more questions to go. So I'll quickly go, maybe a quick round with each one of you. It's more so, there are different strategies. I mean, it's not like these smart cities are being built bottom up as greenfield. So there is something which has to be kind of retrofit. There's something which has to be changed, pan city and all that. So said that, I mean, all of those pose in multiple challenges. And we kind of discussed through that, these challenges are real. There are certain things which needs to be done. Technology can play a role. But let us think through as a citizen, and what are my expectations or probably the next steps, which 1, government should take, 2, industry should take, and 3, as a citizen, our expectations are probably the steps we should take. So can you go, quickly one by one and kind of shed light on this?
Yeah, I think it's on, yeah. So I think from Indian context, I think one of the main things from, that we are seeing is basically the government has to, in some cities we seem to be catching up well, in some cities we are way behind. Some other cities have, I'm talking about only the identified 20 plus 13 cities. Some of them are yet to kind of find their game. Some of them are way ahead in terms of where they should be. But there is no central drive, no central standardization. I think from Indian context, it certainly is required that it gets actually formalized for, quickly and, the states actually start falling in line. That is an expectation from the government because it is still looked at as a central initiative wherein the states are actually participating in. The standards bodies, the industry standard bodies have to seriously come in line. There are like 1 or 2 initiatives that are already there. One M2M is something that, the Ciscos and the Intels and all that have come together and started doing that. This is something that's certainly going to add value to the bottom layer of this, architecture. And that is actually certainly one of the critical items, and I think that is not going to be the only one that's required. I think there are other, integrated, smart city offerings, related standards have to come in place. And secondly, I don't think we can prevent all the attacks. But then we have to worry about the business continuity and, whatever is the similar thing for a smart city. Those definitions have to be done. We have to worry about, articulating and figuring out how to do the drills and ensuring that the certs are actually in place and working. We have to actually think through those in those lines as well. That actually the industry can take the lead. As citizens, I think we have a responsibility towards ensuring that we do not actually jeopardize the overall infrastructure that's going to be built as smart city. It's basically a thing that we used to have slightly better control in a very regulated environment, but smart city is certainly not regulated and citizens have a large role to play in that. Yeah.
Yes. So if I if I have to kind of look at these aspects, then I think, yes, government does make some policies and mandates. But what I would look more forward from them is to kind of a sheer collaboration with advanced technology, opening up the platform for more players to come in and kind of contribute and collaborate. And as we say, right, this PPPP, triple P, right, private and public partnership. So unless that doesn't go hand in hand, I think whatever policies and mandates you create, and if you keep the technology away from that, it is not going to solve the problems. Like, for example, like even if I have to import an hardware today in India, I know what kind of a hassles and what kind of a, things I have to go through it. It's still not easy. So certain things I think we have to kind of look at the ground realities and see how we can ease out the things so that more and more organizations or the kind of entrepreneurs can come forward and kind of bring in the more technological things in place. And we have a sheer knowledge and sheer intelligence in place which can be collaborated well with those policies and mandates to provide the secure and smarter cities, right?
Look, sure, take it.
Yeah, I think actually I'll flip it around and start from the citizen. We will actually just a simple process. We'll have to follow the 3A model: be aware, be alert, and be action oriented. 2 in 10 people will actually go after soliciting mail even today. Someone actually sends a mail saying that you actually have been I don't know, Brunei or whatever sultan has actually left you some stuff and all that, and I'm in people actually still fall for those scams. I think it's important for us to actually be aware, be alert, and actually be action oriented from a citizen point of view. From a government point of view, I think it's an important thing. There are 2 aspects to it. One part of it is actually the policy. We are in a dire need for having a unified policy that actually governs the nation's response when it actually comes to any security issues. What does the citizen on the street have to do in case there is actually something that they come across as not being normal? So that I think is actually missing. So perhaps actually a policy that covers from the citizen to the establishment a whole set of procedures or SOPs that has to be actually done. I think actually that's one of the first tasks for DSCI, isn't it? So probably this security policy is something that will actually come up pretty soon. The industry, I think, actually, is been coming up with, various solutions. There have been various initiatives from industry players, including us, and we've been contributing to, creating solutions that can help actually in the security aspect. However, industry also should actually be a lot more inclusive and a lot more far-sighted. I think actually at the end of the day, industry, if it is actually looking at, selling something and getting away, it's actually a sale, I think perhaps it may not be, Okay, so I'm actually resonant, with Rajiv, your views on having an open platform with collaboration where there is an opportunity for the government and other stakeholders. I would suggest a government, academic, as well as an industry collaboration that can, be proactive in engagement. Industry can bring in the best of the technologies that is there. The government can actually, drive the policy, and you have academia that can actually continue the research in terms of various aspects that are actually needed. So this kind of a platform is actually, what I guess is the need of the hour for us to be better prepared in case actually any eventuality, God forbid, strikes us.
Thank you. Just to answer, for the draft cybersecurity policies, framework has been prepared and it's been shared to the National Cybersecurity Coordinator's Office and possibly with the Ministry of Urban Development as well. So I think the moment it is kind of reviewed and put to shape, it will be released back to you players. And on the second front, which you talked about, the government, industry, academia relationship, DSCI is kind of working on a roadmap. We released a precursor to it yesterday. So that's another initiative which is going on. So I've been reminded twice or thrice about that time. Still, in case we have one question, we can take. Else, definitely the panels. Okay, yeah, please.
I have a basic fundamental question. Is India ready or is India conducive environment to have these smart cities? I understand, that's... See, we are talking from an IT background or IT this thing. You can educate an IT person or you can implement the whatever kind of state-of-art security system. But like when you're talking about bullock carts and things running in India, and we have dogs and rats roaming on the street. What kind of smart city would be comfortable or having a security, aspect, when taking into all these, the vectors we have. So is India really needing a smart city or is it a far-fetched idea? Is it really only on paper?
Yes, please.
Okay, I think this is let me be honest, this is actually something that, runs in my mind day in and day out, is actually our readiness there. But let me just actually answer your question with, what is the concept of actually, having a big goal. It's important for us to actually have a certain amount of focus in enhancing. See, smart city is not really so much about technology. I think, there's a technology heavy platform panel over here. So you'll see a lot of technology resonant messages. But in reality, smart city is a great social equalizer. The ability of a citizen to converse openly and transparently with the government is what a smart city assures. I'll give you an example. Today, if it's actually, it's possible for you to actually connect with the government and actually, share your grievance. I have an application over here, a mobile application, and we are a mobile country. Everybody actually uses mobile. So if it's possible for the man on the street to actually, who comes across a pothole or actually, garbage that's stinking, he or she takes a picture and all that they have to do is actually, just post it. They don't know where they're posting it. They don't even have to tell the address because technology makes it possible for you to pick up the lat long. If you're actually able to do that and, make people, the officers who are responsible, actually, it's visible to everybody, that I think is actually, a great empowering mode for a citizen. But you are right. Our baseline is actually, suboptimal right now. I don't think we actually have all of those tools in place for which I think retrofit is one of the ways in which we can do this. And I have been a firm believer and a proponent of something which is called the land and expand approach. You can't make the whole city smart by the flip of a switch. We actually pick up segments that are actually, opportune for development and then go after that. What is close to my heart and which is something that we've been mooting aggressively is healthcare, safety, and education. These are fundamental things that every citizen actually deserves and should be provided. And technology can make it possible for a remote, and we've got solutions actually within HP. I wish we had the time to discuss, but maybe offline I'll discuss with you. But today it's possible for a very, very poor farm worker or actually a farmer or a laborer in remote Uttar Pradesh to talk to the best of doctors in Narayana Netralaya on one single screen and actually get a resolution or some kind of a solution for his problem. I mean, we have this thing implemented and there is a latent need in India. We rolled out e-healthcare centers. This is outside security aspect, but I would like to share this with you. We've got about 55 watt centers across the country. And when we actually started off, it was a technology play. But today it is actually a holistic solution that addresses the need of accessibility and affordability of healthcare in all over the country. Right now we've done about 250,000 consultations and actually growing every single day. Technology makes it possible for you to have access, affordability, and transparency. And that's actually what I would like to answer. It's a little philosophical, but the point is, it's an equalizer.
No, I completely agree with you. Just one remark here. See, India has the weakest link.
Absolutely. Very well said. And I think that actually is a very, very fundamental thing. These forums such as these, and actually the work that DSCI is doing, all of these things will actually lead to heightened awareness. I can tell you only one thing. With the kind of digital dividend that we have in the country, if any country can actually do it and be aware and do stuff, it's only us because half the country is actually less than 34 years old in that sense. So we are actually riding on digital dividend. And look at actually how leapfrogging of technology. Earlier, I used to see pictures of someone who's actually pushing a cart and using a mobile. That's national news. And today it's actually a day-to-day thing. And only 2 years have passed in between. This, I think, is actually what India is all about. I guess you have the means. We have actually got the skills, talent to actually make use of those technologies. I think it was always an availability of resources for us.
So I think with this, I'd like to close the panel and thank each one of them taking out time and kind of sharing their experiences. Thank you for being a wonderful audience. Thank you.